Hello and welcome back to Lecture 4. In this lecture we're going to make extreme progress. We are going to take and create multiple classes, use it in a real driver type program, see it compile all together and see how it works with Eclipse, and then also experiment with a few different types of constructors and then creating instances of these different classes. So last time, Lecture 3, we talked about the employee class, and hopefully you've already created the employee class and you've already tried it out. We had the main driver program and the employee class all into one. Now, if you can see what's on the screen in front of you here, I am creating essentially three different classes. So obviously our main.java is going to be our main program. It doesn't need to be called main.java. You could call it my program or anything you wanted to. I like to use the word main just so I remember that this is the driver program. Certainly I could call it my YouTube video main class or whatever it is I wanted to label it. So last week we looked at the employee.java class, and that one, oops, let me zoom out a little bit so you can see the source code on this. Let's just review a little bit for those of you who haven't reviewed it in a while. We created a class called employee, and I actually added the public this week. We're just going to use public right now because public is going to be visible by the driver, by other classes, by everybody. And then as we get into inheritance, then I'll start talking about private when we want to use that, and static and some of the other access methods. But let's just work with public. So it's a really good practice to start putting in the access methods at this point. So my employee class is called employee. It's in a file called employee.java. And it has in it class declaration, public class employee. This is the contents of the notepad file, just in case you're doing this at home. And I have two data members, and I'm not gonna go over this stuff again because I'm gonna assume you guys have watched the previous videos so you know what these concepts are. String name, this is gonna hold the name of each employee in each instance that I create, and also double salary. This we've already created. We had a default constructor in this one, and it was basically having the same name as the class name, and it gets called automatically when a new instance of this particular class gets created. And so public employee, by default we have Joe Smith, and we have a salary of $15.75, and then we had some accessors and some modifiers to get the name, to set the salary, and that was pretty much the class. So use your same employee class from last time, and what's new now is we're going to add another class. So I created another class and I called it boss.java, so employee boss. I guess I could have called it supervisor, but now we're going to call it boss. And obviously it's in a file called boss.java. And inside, it might start looking familiar now. In fact, the template for all these classes are pretty much going to look the same, except for I added another constructor to this one to kind of show you. And I added one more variable here. So the data members, again, public class boss, string name to hold the name of the boss, the salary, which is a double, it's money, string level. The level is going to be entry level, middle manager. I put a string in here so you can kind of like give the boss a title. By default I gave him the title of entry, but you can come up with your own naming scheme to essentially give the boss, so I'm a supervisor or general manager, or all we know is that it's a boss because it's above us. And then we also have this thing called attitude, so we can adjust the attitude level of the boss. Is it a good boss, bad boss? Is his attitude on the scale of 1 to 10 or something like that? Okay, so these are the data members that are going to be holding the information about boss. And now for the methods, we have public boss. And you can probably guess right now that this is the default constructor. Same name as the class name, does not take on any parameters, which is why it's called the default constructor, and it is called automatically when every new instance of a boss is created. And so when it's called, we're going to set the name to Mr. Boss, the salary to 20.75, and the level to entry level guy, and we'll get an attitude of 0. And we can always change the attitude and stuff like that. So here's the new code for today, because we've already pretty much seen boss before, because it's the same as employee, essentially. We just gave it a different name. But here's the new stuff. Here is another constructor. And this one has the same name as the previous constructor. So we have public boss, and then we have public boss, and then here's the new part. This one's taking on 4 different parameters, which means if I make a call and I give it 4 parameters, it's going to run this constructor instead. And we'll see that work out in the main driver program. But for right now, we have string n double s for salary, string n is for the name, string L for the level, and A for the attitude, and that's going to be an integer. I just kind of threw an integer in there because it's a new data type I haven't used yet, and I just kind of wanted to show it to you. And so this default constructor is going to take here and say name, which is the data member that's inside of boss, name, oops, right up here, and it's going to assign it to the value n. So name is equal to n, salary is equal to s, as you can probably figure this out already. Level is going to be equal to L, and attitude is going to be equal to A, and here we got integer A up here. This is that parameter for the attitude. And then I put in some accessors and some modifiers here just to show you how this works. We have public double get salary, doing the same thing that the employee is doing. It's getting the salary. But we have this new attitude, so we're going to get the attitude as well, get attitude. And then well, let's be able to set the attitude, because that's really all we care about is, rate our boss, give it an attitude score. So here I created one that didn't actually, and I did this on purpose as well to show you that you can have void methods. If you're setting information, you're probably going to do a void because there is no return type. If you're going to get information out of the class, you're going to have a return type because you're going to be returning some value that's going to be used out in the main driver program. So that's going to have a data type. But here I'm using void, so I have public void set attitude integer A that takes on a parameter integer A and sets the attitude, and it just says attitude is equal to A. So it's kind of doing what our constructor is doing up here, but it's only setting attitude. I could write more of these and set the name, the salary, the level, and do all sorts of different functionality, but I'm kind of showing you as simplified as I can to show you the bare bones kind of system for this. Okay, so let's go back up and take a look at the next new class file. So we have boss, and we have employee, and then we have main. Main, as I said again, is, and if you hadn't noticed, I pulled out of employee, I pulled out the main driver code, and I put it in a separate file, and I called it main.java. I used a capital M because that's really the name of the class. And as I said on day one, everything we're doing in Java, we're just creating classes. One class after another class, and we keep using these classes within other classes. So here's our real first example. Out here in main, we're using boss, and we're also using employee. I don't have to put it in a package. I don't have to put it in the same, well, it has to be in the same directory because it has to find it. It doesn't have to be, there's nothing fancy about this. This is like the bare bones kind of way of doing it. And I'll show you how to do this in Eclipse in a few minutes as well. And you know what? I forgot to put public up here, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to actually modify this. And I'm going to call it, let me see, let me correct my file here, public class main. And inside I've got public static void main. This is what's telling Java that this is the starting point. That, oops, I misspelled public. Probably could have left that and got an error message, and then actually, I should probably introduce an error message so you can probably see what happens when I go to compile this, but I'll do that in a few minutes. So we've got here public class main, and it's inside of main.java with a capital M here and a capital M out in the file name. Remember that it is case sensitive. And inside of this class I have public static void main, and it's taking on argument. Well, actually, I could probably just pull this out if we wanted to, but it's kind of standard practice to put that in there. And what am I doing out here in main? This is the replacement main that used to be in the employee class, and I pulled it out and I put it in a separate file because now I can just go ahead and change this, and I can leave employee and leave a boss alone after I've got them, you know, the way I want them. So I'm going to create here 2 instances. I've got one instance of employee called my employee, and I've got one instance of boss called my boss. I can create as many instances as I want of either one of these 2 classes, or I could just use one or the other. Or if I create a new class, I could use that in here too. And so this first instance here, employee, my employee is equal to new employee. This is running the default constructor that does not take on any parameters at all. And we saw that work last week. It's going to automatically set, because in the rest of my code I'm not actually setting the name, the salary and stuff. I'm going to use the default constructor for that. But in my second instance here, the one I'm creating of boss, so of type boss, I'm creating my boss, which is the name of my object. And I can create my boss 1 and my boss 2. Actually, I can just, you know what, let me just modify the code to give you some more examples here. So if I wanted to create another one, I can go my boss, boss. I'm going to call it my boss 2. Yeah, let's do that one. And then I'm just going to do here new boss, because I don't really feel like giving it a bunch of parameters and stuff at this point. So I create another one. So now I get 2 bosses there. All right, which I probably should exercise it somehow further down in the code, I would say. So let's see, what am I going to do here? So I took out some of the temporary variables I had in the last main, and I kind of streamlined this a little bit. What I did was I said system out.println. So far we're just taking this for granted. We're calling this method system out println. It's printing something to the console, to the screen. And what is it going to print? It's going to print my employee. That's this first instance up here. My employee.getName. And now we're going to print out system out println my employee.getSalary, because we know that's there. All right, no problem. Here we have system out println first attitude equals, and then we have, so now I'm going to show you something a little different. I'm taking a string saying first attitude equals with quotes. If you notice, I put quotes around that, and I put a plus symbol to concatenate. And what I'm concatenating now is a call to, let me make this a little bigger, is going to be a call to my boss.getAttitude. So I'm making a method called getAttitude, the accessor from my boss that we looked at a few minutes ago. And I'm concatenating that, and we'll see how that prints out on the screen. First attitude equals, it's going to be equal to, well, whatever if I have it set to by default. I think it's 0, actually. Nope, actually not, because my boss up here, when I created it, I didn't use the default constructor. Instead, I set it to 1, so that should print a 1 out. But now I'm going to actually set the attitude. So my boss.setAttitude 5. I'm raising the attitude level to 5. Because he's got a good attitude, or she's got a good attitude. And then I'm going to print it out again to show you that it changed. I'm going to say new attitude equals, and it's the same method call we did before. Notice there's no semicolon needed right here. This is a classic mistake some students do. They put the semicolon in here after the method call when you're combining. It's actually referred to as nesting method calls inside of method calls. You only have to put the semicolon at the end of the line, so don't fall into that trap and put it in there any earlier. And then the last call I'm doing here is system.out.println my boss.getSalary. You know what? Let's see. We set the salary here. We added this my boss 2, so we should probably have it do something different. So I'm going to actually add another line of code, and I hate typing. Let's see. I hate typing on YouTube because I make typos and people look at that and go, oh, she can't type. Okay, let's see. My typing is improving, however, though. Let's see. I'm going to say my boss 2.getSalary. Because I think we actually set the salary. And we'll take a look at that, actually. We'll take a look. Here's where my typing goes. We'll take a look at that. And I'm kind of putting some spaces in the code here to kind of make it look a little easier for you guys to look at on the screen. So you might want to do is like pause the video, maybe type some of the information in, you should be able to type all this stuff in. And in one of the last videos, I actually tried to cut and paste the code and put it in the comments of the video. However, it kind of like word wrapped all over the place, so I'm going to try maybe put it on the bhacker.com website for you. But at the end of the video, I'll sort of put the screens out so you can kind of pause the video and type it in on your computer, which might probably not be a bad idea. And maybe improve your typing too. So let's see, we got the myboss2.getSolid, a little slight modification on that. So let me save the file actually. So I'm going to go save. And now what I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to show you the non-Eclipse way of making this work. And then I'll be introducing an error. I'll just open up one of the files, introduce an error, and then show you what happens. So now we have 1, 2, 3, and you might think, well, what do we do? Well, we have to compile it, right? Because we only have .java files. And it's actually kind of easy at this point, because what we do is we pick the main one out, main.java, and compile that. And the other two will compile automatically. Because main.java is actually using, it's using boss and it's using employee right here. So we got boss, employee. So it's going to look at, Java's going to actually go out and look to see if it can find those classes. So here's what we got. Let me make this a little bigger here. The old-fashioned way with our DOS prompt, if I do a directory, I see that the files are out here, boss.java, employee.java, main.java. This is the same. This is the same directory you were looking at in the file manager. And so to compile, we go Java C space main. Make sure to capitalize that main. Did I put too many spaces in there? Maybe not. Main.java. It comes back. Ooh, it came back with an error. System. Oh, you know why? Because I had a typo in there. Okay, not a statement. All right, let me go back in and fix it. That's why I don't type on YouTube. Let's go back in the main. Let's see, fix that typo real quick. Actually, let me zoom out so I can actually see my screen. Of course, the line here, somebody probably was yelling it at me as they were looking at the video. No, you've got a typo. Okay, so let's go and save that. We have fixed the typo that was not on purpose. Let's go back to the DOS window and find the DOS window. Here it is. So. Technology, gotta love it. Let's see, I'll make that a little bigger. I think that's big enough. Let's try that again. So I'm actually just going to clear this. Here we go. Clear the screen out. Java C, and this is a trial. This is actually true. This is trial and tribulations you go through when you're compiling it yourself. It came back and it didn't give me anything. Well, that's great. If I do a directory here and I go star.class, wow, I have a boss.class, an employee.class, and a main.class. That I didn't have before. And so now I'm actually going to put an error in and show you what happens here. I'm going to actually delete these .classes because I don't want it compiled anymore. And then now what I'm going to do is go back in here and purposely put an error in. But I'm not going to put it in main. I'm going to put it, let's put it in boss. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say, actually we just put 2 B's in here. So we got public. Which is a misspelling of public. That should definitely generate an error, I would think. And now we're going to go back and take a look then and see what happens when we try the same process over again. So I'm going to type in, let me just clear the screen so I got a good screen here. I'm going to type in Java C main.java. Remember, I deleted all the class files. None of them are there. So when it finds main, it has to go out and look for boss and has to go out and look for employee and compile everything. If it doesn't all compile, it'll compile the parts, but some of the other things will be missing. So I did main.java, oops, boss.java. It automatically found that and said, oh, we have a problem. And now if I do directory of star.class, I don't have anything. It stopped. The compilation stopped because of that typo. If we had a typo in the employee class, it would have stopped on that one as well. So let's see. Let me go back here, go back to boss, fix the typo, take out the B. There we go. Let me now go ahead and compile it, and we'll see this sucker work this time. So let's see. File not found. Oh yeah. Okay. So let's see, lo and behold, we're finally going to get this to compile correctly. If I type it in correctly, and it compiled correctly. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and run it to tell you, and this will be our first look, and I'll come back and compare the driver program so you can kind of see the before and after. So this is what happens when we run it. When we run Java, we run the main. That's why I keep calling it the driver program. It's going to run the employee class, it's going to run the boss class for us. So if I type in Java main, I get Joe Smith, and I get $15.75, and I get first attitude 1, new attitude 5, because remember I changed the attitude, and then I think one of those salaries are at $20.85 and $20.75. One of them is the salary I gave the constructor, and the other one is the default constructor. I want to say that $20.75 is the default constructor, but let's go take a look at that real quick. So boss is the one I made my boss and my boss 2, and $20.75 was the default constructor. Remember, no parameters, it's the default. This other one took it and assigned it on the command line for us. And when in my driver program, I made, out here in main, I said my boss, the first one, I said $20.85. Maybe I should have made that $25. Change that to $25. And show you what happens here. I'm going to save that actually. And so we have $25.85 an entry. I'm going to call this guy middle. Actually, let's just try middle. Actually, I don't think I was printing out. You know what? I actually didn't even print out that. So. And then down here, what do we got here? System out. We got the get salary, the get salary. I'm going to add a little label here down the bottom, and I'm going to say boss. Oops. Boss equals plus. There we go. You don't have to put a plus. I don't have to put a space in between the stuff here. I could just leave it like that if I wanted to, but it's kind of sloppy. So I did that. Let's see. I'm going to go here, boss 2. Boss 2 equals. There we go. So let's see. And I'm going to change the driver program here. And I just saved it. And hopefully I don't have any typos. And if I go out here and go directory star.class, I see I've got out here at 5:31 p.m. I've got boss class 1, boss class, employee class, and main class all compiled at 5:31 p.m. I just changed main. So now I'm going to go javac main.java because I want to compile that again. Now if I go directory star.class, I got 5:31, 5:31, and 5:34. Wow. It meant what ended up happening when I typed in javac main.java right here is that it went and actually, he keeps saying it went. The Java compiler went out into the directory location for where main and Java main.java was located, found boss.class, found employee.class, and determined that they were already compiled and it didn't need it for main. And so you see that the original compilation was at 5:31 for all 3 files. On the second compilation we have 5:31, 5:31, and 5:34, which means only main.java was compiled and the other 2 stayed the same. This could actually be an interesting observance, because essentially what ends up happening is now you kind of see how you can build a repository of classes, and you can have a ton of classes. When you compile, it only compiles what changed, what needed to be recompiled. It's not actually going out though and checking boss.java or employee.java, which means if you actually changed, as an example, boss.class and boss.java, we made a slight change in it, and we are compiling main.class, and we already have a boss.class file. It's not going to recompile boss.java and create a new boss.class. It's going to use the old one that's still there. So in that particular case, we would type in Java C boss.java, which would create a new a new boss.class file for us. So if I do directory star.class, it's kind of like a tongue twister. Here now we see that we have 536. I just compiled the boss.class. So in essence, what I'm saying is that if you're changing all of the class files around, it's actually not a bad idea to do what I did before and type in delete star.class. In a working directory for which you are running your project and your programming and all you have are your project files here, that's not a bad idea because it makes sure everything is fresh and that a change to something that didn't get compiled before isn't gonna not take effect. Because we could have changed boss, we could have changed employee and main, and if we had old class files sitting around, when we compiled main, it would go back and it would already find class files for the other two and leave them alone and not compile them. So you don't actually have to go through and say, Java C boss.java, Java C employee, Java C main. You don't have to compile all of them. Start with the main, and whatever it's using, it'll go through recursively through and compile what it needs if it doesn't exist. Now, if you didn't change boss, you didn't change employee, you could just leave them alone, and that would be just fine, actually. So I just removed, actually, up here, I just removed the, I did a delete star.class, and I removed all of the class files we have here, so in file not found, so I kind of cleaned things up. So we don't all like working in DOS. Some of us actually prefer Eclipse or the Windows environment. So now I'm going to show you how to do all this stuff in Eclipse. And I don't have to go through the files again. We're going to use the same files. And what we're going to do is just create a blanket Eclipse project. And I took the liberty of actually just cleaning everything out of Eclipse. So the project Explorer is empty right now. Let me zoom out a little bit so you can kind of see what that window looks like. There it is, and it's empty. So now let's say we have these files, we created them out there. We know how to do it from within Java. We just go File, New, and then we select the class file. This is what we did for the employee class. And if we wanted to add boss, we'd just go back and say File, New, another class, let's add boss. Let's add this and let's add. We just keep adding files. You could build it essentially inside, but let's say we already have the files, because sometimes what ends up happening is you find these source code examples on the internet. And you go, well, it's not in Eclipse. Does that mean I only have, I can't use Eclipse with it? No, that's not the answer. Here's how you do it. Okay, so I'm just going to go File, New, Java Project. And it's going to open up a screen. And here I'm just going to say Test. This is going to be our test. And then on the bottom, I'm not going to set any other parameters or anything. I'm just going to go Finish. Alright, and now I got Test. And Test is going to have source, and the source is going to be empty. Default package. Wait a minute. Hold on. Let's not call it test. Looks like test already existed. So I'm going to delete this here. And it was already in the project space. So let's see. Let me call it something brand new. Let me try that one more time. Java program. Well, let's going to call it YouTube test. YouTube test. I know that doesn't exist. I haven't used that one yet. All right. So and finish. Alright, so this one should be empty. And then actually that wasn't a bad idea that we just did a few minutes ago with test. I mean, prior to shooting this video, I decided, well, what would be the easiest way to show this? And I actually did it already, just so I knew, basically what the most efficient route might be. And I forgot I called it test actually. And I opened it up and went, oh, there's stuff in there. So Eclipse isn't going to be smart enough to know it's already in the project space, although it's not in the Project Explorer window. And it pulled up that old project. So now we have YouTube test. It's brand new. The source is empty. So, just by default, it's not a bad idea to just check that out. So now what we're going to do is import those 3 files in. In fact, it's quite easy. We're going to go File, and we're going to scroll down to Import. So hopefully you can see that on your screen. It says Import. And oops, where'd it go? Alright, let's go back. I have the File menu, Import, and I'm going to say Import. Okay, good. Now I got this little import screen that comes up, and this might not be opened, so go into General, and click on File System, because we're going to import from the File system. We can actually take existing projects that are in our workspace, like I could take that old test one if I wanted to and import it into this one. Because what we're doing is just managing this by project. But I just want to pull from the File system because I have all these stored out on my C drive, the 3 files that I want to use. So I'm going to say File System, and I'm going to go Next. And then up here it's going to say, well, where in the File system? And let's just pick the C drive. So let's see. My documents, no, my computer. Welcome to Windows. C. Okay, so I got the local drive C here created. And I'll say OK. And so now this is really, it's just actually if I press this here, because I open up to subdirectories. But what I want, it's just asking me for a starting place. And now I can actually in one shot click on boss.java, employee.java, and main.java, and import in all 3, actually. Not a bad idea. And so I'm not going to select any of the other options. It's going to go into source. It's going to create selected subfolders only. Alright, so I'm going to select finish. Now when I go out, it kind of looks like that other test. I have default packages loaded. And now I have boss and boss.java, employee.java, main.java. And this is what your project should look like, actually. And if you double click on here, it should open up on the right hand side over here and show you the source code for Boss, which is what's showing up over here. Now you have all the benefits of Eclipse because now everything's color-coded, so it looks really nice. And you can easily do changes, and here's employee. And if you haven't noticed already, you get like little tabs that show up. If you close the tabs, the project file is still in the project. In fact, I'm just going to go save because I'll probably end up using this project again in the future. Actually, I'll just do that at the end. So here's our main, and we can make changes to the main if we want to. We can change the files inside of Eclipse. We can change them outside of Eclipse. But what I basically did, let's say for example, I downloaded boss.java and employee.java and main.java. Somebody put this on the internet, and I downloaded the example. This is how I would get it into Eclipse if I wanted to use them into Eclipse. So don't restrict yourself to using just Eclipse project downloads, because what you'll see out there when you start looking for examples, it'll say saved in Eclipse version something or other, and then it's like, oh, is it compatible? Any source code can actually be used. So and now I can use Eclipse to run it. So I'm going to go run as, and oops, way over here it's going to say Java application. And lo and behold, on the bottom here in our console window, I have Joe Smith, $15.75. First attitude is equal to 1. I changed it to 5. Oh yeah, boss, I actually changed that default to $25.85. And then boss 2, because remember I put I changed the text, so it said, well, boss is equal to this, boss 2 is equal to this. And so I changed the salary around. So what you saw in this particular tutorial, just to refresh your memory, is how you probably are going to want to continue creating classes. So the main point is you've got this driver. It doesn't have to be called main, although main's not a bad habit to get into. And it's making instances of boss, and it's also making instances of employees. And they're all stored together in one location. I didn't actually bother using packages in this particular example. I also didn't import files. I'm going to show you that in one of the future, probably coming up soon, one of the future video tutorials. But for this moment in time, not a bad idea to start playing around. In fact, what you can do is, at this point, take actually, while I'm talking to you, I'll show you the source code so that you can copy it down. It's not a bad idea just to start creating some practice classes and then making instances of the classes and using that. And if you're pausing the video right now, here's the boss class. Here's the first part of it. So I'll make this a little bigger. There we go. here's the first part of the boss, from the screen going this way, and here's the second part. So it's the lower half. So pause the video, type this stuff down. This is the upper part. This is what main looks like. Oops, save changes, yes. Main, here's the top part of main. Pause the video, type this stuff into your screen. Here's the bottom part of the video, and no, it's not cut off, that's good. So pause the video, type in that source code. And in a sense, kind of an archaic way of doing it, but in some cases, you're not going to want to bother typing it or copying it from here, and hopefully you're going to start writing it yourself. Because this doesn't really matter. I mean, right? System out print line. As long as you know how to do that and how to call a method, this is what we're doing. We're calling methods. You could write your own source code at this point, and you can actually work your own classes out this way. So that was the main, and the employee. The only thing different about employee in this one is that it's smaller. We have, and I added the public to it, so we have name, salary. And that's it, actually. The entire employee collection probably fit. There it is. It fits, actually, in the window because I took out the driver program. And I took out driver, which was the main that we saw, and I put it into its own file. So that's the source code for employee. Now, as I was saying before, I recommend, and this is where you want to start your own contribution. You can't learn how to program by listening to me, although hopefully that will help you. What the next step in your homework, YouTube homework, is to start adding functionality to this. Add some more modifiers, add some more accessors. Why don't you add another constructor for employee, and then add a few things to boss, or maybe make another one. You don't have to stop at just boss. Maybe you could put foreman or shop manager, or you can put managers. Here's boss. You could maybe make another one. So the more classes you make, they're all done the same way. They all follow the same format. They all get put into a file with the name of the class, and make sure you're using the same case, like in a capital E here and a capital E on the name, and they all get called the same way out in main. So I highly recommend, if you really want to learn this stuff, I highly recommend creating some more classes on this theme. You could even venture out and create another theme. And once we get comfortable, and in probably just another video down the road, I'm going to show you how to build a class from a class. And then, but in order to really talk about inheritance, and in order to really get a feel for how that's done, you have to have a real strong class, a real strong object background. And so that's going to help you the most, I believe. So go have at it, create some classes. You're armed and dangerous. You should be able to create as many classes of any type that you want, with as many constructors as you want, and build them all in a same directory and put them all in a main file. And experiment with the main file. Call it something else. Play around with it as much as possible is my best advice. And in the next couple videos, I'm going to kind of continue with single line classes, no inheritance yet, but show you, I've shown you how to output to the screen. I haven't shown you how to take information in yet. I haven't shown you how to use some of the variables and some of the other features from a programming language, from a Java perspective. So I'm going to kind of mix some of that stuff in next, but at the same time, you're building your class skills and getting ready for inheritance. And once you've learned inheritance, you know more than about half of the people out there that call themselves object-oriented programmers. In fact, I would almost say you know 2/3 more than all of those people. So good luck, and enjoy creating classes.